Because as you got from chapter 6, this version of Christianity we're talking about right now, and especially from the videos, is one that is still within that Roman mindset, or that Roman civilization. So, who would like to start with their answer to that question to get us kicked off for today? And by the way, you are free to therefore debate and question them, but I do ask that you please raise your hand and not interrupt people. That would be rude. Alright, so who's up for it first? Go ahead, Torn.
I might be wrong, but what I noticed about like a lot of Roman Christianity at the time is it wasn't really based on it kind of still was, but it wasn't really based on exactly the affinity pattern. It was more based on what you did. So like a lot of times Roman Christians, like before that, when they were still kind of starting up, there was the whole circumcision thing and that whole thing. So a lot of it was very physical binding things.
Or can you speak up as hard to hear you?
Oh, okay, my bad. A lot of it was like physically binding, and so you did when you committed, you really committed. And also, what I know is I think at the time was like if you did certain things that people didn't agree with, you could be killed for it. So it wasn't like now where you could have different branches and coexist. It was like you fall in line or you don't, and you're not a part of this. So I mean that's what I kind of got from this about kind of falling in line and keeping in line with tradition and what people believe or what the majority believe.
Okay, so there are a lot of real stakes here at this point. Lives are on the line in a very real sense, and there's a lot of pressure to conform. I mean, conform to what is a good question, I feel, but definitely to conform to something. Jonathan, you had a follow-up.
I just had a question for you. So you mentioned physical binding. I was a little confused. Can you like elaborate on that a little more?
So like I know that this kind of died off with when Paul even started doing it. They said in the video like circumcision was a big thing and all that stuff. But like specifically with Roman Christians before it became like really a thing for all of Rome, or it becoming almost a Christian state. It also just means going through a lot of like getting hurt and risking as martyrs and stuff like that. So like that's also another thing that they put up.
Okay, so yeah, the physical descriptions, I mean, like real physical stuff. You gotta die or get seriously injured, or as sure some Romans certainly viewed, you got to disable yourself in order to become part of the faith. Something that, as Torn mentioned, is certainly not really a present thing nowadays. At least I don't remember the last time the Catholic Church required you to slice off your foreskin in order to be a member. Okay. Alright, so yes, we are going to need to really speak up as loudly as we possibly can, especially for our virtual students. Otherwise, they will have a hard time hearing, and especially some of our people in maybe the more remote corners of the room will have a hard time hearing as well. So speak as loudly as you can. Alright, go ahead. If standing up is helpful for you in order to speak loudly, if you feel that would help you speak more loudly, that's also fine. But go ahead, Cameron.
I'll just speak louder.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, pagans, like, they believe, like, they favored, like, the gods or whatever. I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct. And, like, Christians, I guess they went against, like traditional religious ways and stuff. So I guess they were kind of, like, hated upon a lot because they didn't stick to those, like, what he was saying, like, the circumcision. A lot of people didn't necessarily stick to those religious rituals and traditions. Or they were scared that, like, angry gods would punish them in some type of way, stuff like that.
Okay, so he's mentioned the paganism element. Good. I think that's an important thing to certainly think about, is the fact that paganism is a major force. Certainly not going to go away quickly. A lot of people are afraid what happens if they reject or compete against paganism. Yes?
So a lot of people consider Christianity and paganism to be two very separate and different like religions, because they are almost quite literally like the opposites of each other. Not in like the God sense, but pagans believe in multiple gods. Christianity doesn't believe in multiple gods. And so when Christianity arose in Rome, where it was a paganistic religion, when people brought up the ideas of a singular God rather than all of the gods they've known for hundreds of years, that is what caused the major conflict of violence.
Yeah.
Because it was like one group of people was almost invalidating another group of people that was the majority, and that's why people were killed over.
Ah, violence from invalidation.
Didn't they have like shows or whatever? Like when they were like punishing people or whatever, like when they like get together in the stadium, like watch them get tortured.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what the Colosseum was
Colosseum.
for. Yeah, that's
Yes.
how it
Gladiator
started.
fights, yeah.
No, it was
All right, Terry, speak up.
wasn't it the Vatican that was more religious aimed?
Well, we don't have a Vatican yet, so I mean, just because there's not something as highly organized as the Vatican doesn't mean that there's not religious activity.
I see.
All right, now yeah. That's good. Sorry, what? Yes.
So to follow up what Jake was saying, a lot of the fear came whenever the Romans decided to crucify Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason being was because according to the biblical text, there was a lot of supernatural things that occurred whenever Jesus had died.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when one of the Roman soldiers stabbed Jesus in the torso, the earth literally shattered, causing the palace to corrupt upon itself, and the sky, the heavens were roaring in thunder with rain and everything. So that was one event, and that happened. When that happened, a lot of the Romans were in fear because they knew that it was displeasing in the eyes of God, and they were afraid of that.
In the odds of a god.
A God, yes. And the second supernatural event that happened was when Jesus was resurrected. A lot of the followers of Jesus knew that this would happen, and so as soon as this occurred, they started spreading the word, of Jesus Christ, and that caused a lot of upslur during that time. So the Romans resulted to, massacring a lot of the followers of Christ. So I believe that was one of the reasons that, there's a major, difference between paganism and Christianity.
All right, so let's help direct this argument we're focusing on right now, which is paganism versus Christianity. That seems to be the argument we're focusing on right now. So let's help direct it then. So to direct it, let's direct it by a very simple question, which is, why does Rome view Christianity as a threat? Obviously, Rome was a pagan state before. We got that. So we've also established at this point that paganism and Christianity are not compatible with each other. So why does Rome, this super powerful empire full of pagans, view Christianity as a threat? This violence that y'all are describing to me. All right, I know y'all have stuff to say. Let's give somebody who hasn't spoken maybe a chance to answer on this. Anyone else feel they have something they can add, including our virtual people? Which y'all could just speak up when you wish. Okay, looks like we need to, we'll go ahead and we'll start with, all three of y'all put up your hands, so I'm not sure who goes first. We'll just go with Torin first, and then we'll move on to others. Hopefully we'll get everybody else to remember to speak up their minds. Yes?
I think it was politics, really. I think that was a really big thing because a lot of, I think I could be incorrect, but I think a lot of what was steering Rome was, like you said, the uprisings and stuff, some of the violence that was started. Because it was like, I think individuals that were poor people, or people who felt like they were, who felt marginalized and stuff like that, like they started going toward the people of the different houses and stuff, who were Christians at the time, early Christians, because they felt like, I guess it gave them like sense of I'm not sure exactly. But doing that, I think, scared a lot of the people who were in power at the time, because the more people who get to rally up against you, especially during the times when conquering was a thing, and the more uprisings that happen, the more disputes grow, it's possible that they could overthrow people with power and stuff like that.
Okay. So in a society where violence is the norm, when you have a class struggle, which is what you're describing, then anything that gives power to the less members of society is viewed as a threat. And if Tiffany, I saw your hand up first.
I feel like the reason why Romans didn't really like Christianity is because they think they're like very powerful and everything, and they don't want something that will threaten their power. And so, since Christianity doesn't really get along with paganism, it would really threaten their power. So they don't want something that would threaten their power, threaten their control over everything they have. So I feel like that's why they didn't really do Christianity.
Okay, so again, that threat to power, political power certainly being in the hands of those at the top. So I saw her hand first, and then we'll go to you.
I was just going to say, so like you said, the way that the Christian conversion happened is that they would go to the slaves and the poor people first, because they would benefit off of the success of Christianity, because the Christians offered them like if you follow my faith, I will reward you. But if you get caught following my faith, you'll get killed because you're not worshiping me. So rallying up the people who really need that support, like you said, that's what caused, I guess, for it to be noticed, because it wasn't on a religious scale that they were scared of Christianity because they're disrupting my worship of the gods. It's they're disrupting my way of life and how things might work in terms of being maybe in a authority type role.
Okay, so it's not about beliefs; it's about power and lifestyle. Okay.
I think it's possible for them to actually have a religious dispute with the other people with different beliefs already there, because supposedly they're supposed to partake in these other rituals for all these other gods. Christians obviously won't do.
Mm-hmm.
The emperor, frankly, I don't think cares too much about these Christians one way or the other, and of all the religious, I guess, groups and all the influence and power they hold, they could obviously spark their own rebellion against them and kill them without resistance.
Okay, so you're stating that Rome, that at least from the emperor's position, there's no reason to fear that they could just simply crush them whenever they wish, and so there is no concern.
That they want to crush them, there isn't enough reason to keep them around.
So who wants to crush who here? I think we need to clarify. Too many pronouns, not enough nouns here. Who's crushing who?
So the worshippers of multiple gods
Right.
want to crush the Christian people who believe in that one God.
Okay. Okay, but why would they want to? I thought you just said that the emperor doesn't view them as a threat.
Yes, the emperor doesn't necessarily. I'm sorry, never mind. I mean, I'll probably think this through a little more later.
Well, I mean, it's a good idea, but I am a little lost
I
here.
need more details on it.
Do you
Okay.
mean as an emperor, as an individual, he understands his power enough to be secure that Christians won't actually take over his power, but the people underneath him.
Yeah, like the
and
religious groups, I would think, would
so,
perceive that as a threat.
So that the emperor is too powerful.
That is a good point.
Is that what you mean?
I think so.
Okay,
The emperor wouldn't
well,
necessarily.
one at a time.
Don't they talk about that in the video? Did they say the video, or even in the Bible, that it was the religious leaders who had an issue with Christianity?
Okay, yes, and you're right. It does say that in the video. The emperor, even the emperor is on Christianity's side. He really does not want to be dealing with this sort of thing. We see that from Constantine. He has what he feels are more important matters to take care of, and it definitely seems to be the middlemen that Nathan's describing that seem to be the real problem here. Anyways, it seems to be those middlemen who are the real problem there. The people who are powerful, yes, but maybe not at the same level as the emperor. Okay, now I thought I heard something over here. Yes.
I was trying to ask the part, but it seems like it's not everyone's talking about the power struggle, but
Right.
I don't think it's just a power struggle the underclass overthrowing the empire.
Right.
I think it also has to do the people just don't like the fact that a group of people just came out out of nowhere and said, what you're doing is wrong. Let's do it our way. Because they've had that lifestyle and tradition for a while. So it must be off-putting for someone just try to get rid of your tradition, your lifestyle. Almost like a religious cleansing. No one wants their religion to be told wrong. Oh no, there's not multiple gods, there's just one God.
Yeah, we could also describe it as the, well, actually.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
Okay, so we have an important point there. Maybe it's not really so much of a power struggle as maybe honestly, it's. I mean, we can come up with a lot of modern terms for that type of attitude, but people who are telling you that you are wrong because I say you're wrong, and that therefore you should stop doing what you've been doing all your life, and you should do things this way. This is the right way to do it. The previous way you've been doing it is wrong.
Yeah.
So anybody else got a comment or something to add to that or counter that position? Yes, David.
I feel like it goes on with what he's saying because it would be a little disheartening to see you think these people are crazy, right? Because they're speaking something outlandish to you, but then slowly seeing your following get smaller and smaller, or seeing less people come to your church because they're converting to Christianity may be disheartening, or just angry. It makes you angry because it's basically they're following this crazy person or crazy belief.
So you fear irrelevance,
Yeah.
lack of existence. Yeah, so you used to be cool, but now you're not. So somebody else is more cool than you, who you firmly believe is uncool.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So, but Christianity now has taken so much from paganism. A lot of the Christian traditions are originally pagan traditions. So what was Christianity while paganism was the norm?
That's a good question. We actually got a good dose of that in the videos. Can anyone actually answer that? That's a good question for us to ask. What is Christianity then in this early period?
To be honest, I feel like they themselves couldn't really answer that question because a lot of early Christians themselves they questioned a lot of their beliefs, and it even caused them to split up a bunch of times into different kinds of Christians, the what are they called? The Dolists,
Docetists?
Yeah, Docetists. They believe that Jesus was a full spirit, he and that interfered with the other Christian belief because that would basically it didn't make as much as an impact of him dying in for his people. It doesn't, because he's a spirit. It doesn't really affect as much.
Okay. Okay, so we do have those different branches. Yes, Torrin?
It could also be the time period, and just it could also be time period and also just from that time period the people who they are around. So if you be converted to something, it means that you most likely grew up with it and you believe it and followed it for a while. So in my mind, I could be correct, but in my mind I think it probably does have similarities because those people were that. And I think that we even talked about in the video how they even sometimes the early Christians let certain things slide. They're like, yo, it's okay. You don't have to do everything super traditional because you are converting in how you live your whole life. It's more how you show it's more how you show things. So maybe it's also just you live with it. So the same habits that you might pick up, the same things you still probably believe. It's just you're just transitioning to another.
Okay, so Christians are very honestly open then at this point.
I feel like the reason that they weren't so hardcore about these traditions or all these things that they did before was because this is a very new religion. It was just created, and if they were so hardcore about cut off your foreskin, they weren't going to get any members. They had to do what they could, make sacrifices so that they could grow. They hadn't done that, Christianity wouldn't be as big as it is now.
Okay, so I get it. Making the necessary sacrifices to make it as public and popular as possible. Anyone have anything to add to that or counter it in any way? And so I have a good question that I feel is coming up. So I feel like we have some maybe competing ideas here. So we talked earlier about, I believe it was the high stakes involved of people fighting and dying for their belief systems. And mentioning those different belief systems of Christianity, but then we also just discussed how open Christianity is to change and doing what's necessary in order to grow. So I feel like there's a disconnect here between, well, okay, so where are we drawing the line between changing for growth and no, that's going too far? Because as we learned from those videos, and y'all have already mentioned to me, there clearly is a too far, but now I'm confused as to where that line is. Yes, David?
I feel like they based it on what they deem a little familiar. Like they based it on ideas that they could warm up to as like a whole, because things that were deemed like too the other side or too weird would normally like split off into their own church or in their own sect of Christianity. So for them to like believe something as a whole, because it was a bunch of people like teaching each other, right, it would basically be like maybe somebody of greater importance, not like a regular member, would have an idea, and he would try to form that idea with his version of Christianity, and the people he converted or the people who agree with that idea would come together to like basically make that idea work in the religion. And if that didn't work out for them, they would like move to a separate part of the church, or they would fight for supremacy over.
So you're saying there's already a good system with dealing with this, which is someone important comes up with an idea, then if enough people happen to like the idea, we accept the idea, and if enough people doesn't like the idea, we either exile or destroy it.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have anything they want to add to that or counter to that? Because that seems remarkably elegant. I don't know if I feel like it's really that straightforward. But I want to hear from y'all whether you feel that's a good way of looking at it or not. Yes, you're not saying anything. I'm taking that as agreement.
So, in my opinion, the reason that they had so much hardships and struggle, even though they were so much is because they were open to change. When they were open to change, and it made it easier for people to want to join because there's so much that they're having to give up, like their force games. It gave them numbers, which in turn gave them power, which scared the emperor. So then they started facing more hardships, and since they were getting bigger, their name was getting more well known, which meant that people that opposed them were hearing more about them, and they were countering them and trying to persecute them. They were trying to exile them, things like that. So in turn, I think it was just their growth that was what gave them the numbers.
Okay, so you're saying that growth is a key factor in what's going on.
Yes.
Okay, I get you. Yes, Nate.
I want to add something to that method mentioned earlier.
Yes.
So technically that method can work at some degree. However, there's also still corruption in that method, as explained in one of the videos at the very least. It isn't really necessarily infallible. It's not necessarily the majority, because more often than not, it would seem when there isn't a definite winner, they usually have to come back and discuss it again until one side wins enough for someone to be exiled or the idea to be terminated one way or the other.
Okay, that's a good point. Absolutely. So this process is not as final or as concise as we would certainly probably wish it to be. That's a good point. All right, next, yes.
I just want to I'm kind of thinking about what Terry said about the religion changing so much to add more people. I just kind of want to know, like, did anyone ever like take a step back and think, well, if they're changing it so much, it doesn't seem like a really solidified religion. It doesn't seem as concise because it keeps splitting up and everything. I just want.
Oh, so you're wondering if anybody's attempting centralization? That would be what you talk about, is bringing everything back to the center.
Or maybe just like being pushed away from it entirely because it doesn't seem as solidified.
What is it being pushed away from?
I mean, people being pushed away from Christianity itself because there's all these divisions, there's all these different schools of thought. There's all these different little things that keep getting given up. I
Because
don't really know how to explain
the
it.
division and change, are you saying it makes it less appealing?
I suppose so, because it doesn't seem as consistent as
Okay.
other
It doesn't
religions.
seem like it's reliable.
Lack of consistency and reliability, okay, and I see, okay, first I saw, I'm not sure who's hand up first, let me go in order, so Torin,
They were,
and they were first, or no?
they were first for a while.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure who to pick from this then, yeah, go ahead.
So I would say that maybe they don't care so much about the consistency because every religion before this, as far as I know, was what's the word for it? They worshipped a bunch of stuff. Like there's just a bunch of things to worship in every religion before Christianity became what it is. So I would say maybe they don't really think so much about, well, there's this train of thought and there's this train of thought with Christianity because beforehand, and in specifically like Greece and Rome, they worshipped plants, trees, they worshipped horses. Like there's so many different things in the religions before that maybe they just find it natural for people to question and evolve a religion into different terms and different like, ways of thinking, because that's kind of how the polytheistic religions were before. Because personally, like as someone who practices paganism, like there's so many different things that it makes sense for me as an outsider looking in for Christianity to see that, maybe they would want to question why some people think this when they have like evidence for something else. And that's also how like polytheistic religions were evolved as well.
Those women in the shape of sea foam.
And to
David?
add on to that,
Aphrodite.
yeah, to add on to that, Christianity, while new, it still offered them something. Like they joined the Christian church for a reason, and that reason is still there. So,
Okay.
despite them splitting and diversifying, the reason they joined that church and their beliefs are still in the roots of it. And it wouldn't really make sense to go back to something that you thought wasn't as good as Christianity.
Okay, so there's a core belief system that is what's getting people to convert, and so even with all the changes and splits, that core belief system remains.
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan?
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think, I don't think the changes were really just a matter of, it wasn't, if this happened per se, it was like how, about the how. So it's like, I think it's kind of like what we're doing now is a good example. So we're all focused around one topic. It's just we're discussing the same topic and the foundation is the same. It's just we're like, well, what about this and what about that? And we just offer the topic. So I don't think like the changes were necessarily like, did he exist type of thing. It was just about the nature of it. So what was like, whatever I say is like, what was bringing people in was the same. So the story was the same and all that. It was just a matter of, okay, like, how did it happen? I believe this happened and this happened. So if you are from pagan, that's not weird to you because there are multiple streams that apply and different ways that things happen. So
Okay, yes, John.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was like to add on what Martin said.
Yes.
I think there is definitely what David said. There's that core belief that Christians believe like in God, the Holy Spirit, and like Jesus Christ. But I also think there's different ideas of how they came about or how certain topics are presented or how they came. And I think that's what probably originally could have had driven off Christians when they came and then they realized, okay, we believe in the same like the core, like you said, core belief, but we don't necessarily agree on certain topics within that core belief. And I think that could have been enough to be able to cause Christians to, I guess, leave the church. But at the same time, I kind of see the side where even though there was little topics changing, that core belief was enough to keep the Christians there. So I guess what I'm saying is they can go both ways.
Okay.
the thing is that, like being able to hang with a certain group of people who think like you, that, it doesn't mean, I don't think it means that, screw the rest of the guys. I just think it's like, because I have a group of friends who I choose, does that mean I don't like everyone else? Not necessarily, it just means that I'm closer to these people because we share the same thoughts and stuff like that. We all are in high school, we all are graduates together, we never do something together. So I mean, I don't think division, I was saying it is necessarily charity.
Okay.
It's almost like show, it's not like they force people to hate.
But the thing is though, is with this type of division, it's not like we're different people, it's that I'm rivaling your train, like I'm rivaling your way of life. Like you have your core beliefs in this religion that we all are part of, but I'm saying that the way you understand it is wrong, and the way that I understand it is right.
Alright, so let's put a pin in that for the moment. We'll get back to that because it's a good topic. And of course, yes, high school is just a belief. Y'all are not actually really here. It is only because of your faith and will that this actually exists.
Yeah,
It's all
none of
illusion.
this is true, none of
Alright,
this is real.
but anyways, we had from over here,
I
so.
had a question because you said uncommonality in belief, and I was like, how would
Make
you
sure you
describe?
yell it, because I can't move around right now.
How would you describe the factor of Christianity as the factors for Jews and the Mosaic Law and how they factor together in Christianity?
Okay, so there's how does the Jewish component get in there? All right, so we have two really good questions to focus on. Let's take them one at a time. So we have, of course, that question about is diversity a good thing, which actually, yes, relates to what Aaron said earlier about centralizing. It really does relate to that. So we'll get to that one in a bit. Let's first focus on the Christian and Jewish angle of things. Remind everybody again specifically what your question was.
How does Christianity factor within the Jews and the Mosaic Law?
Okay, so good. That's a good question. I need, especially some of our people who have not yet piped up, how does Christianity fit within Jewish tradition? Alright, so I know our virtual people haven't spoken yet, but let's get the in-person people first. So I could pick on Jason, but I think that'd be unfair. So instead, I'll pick on Ms. Howard. So any ideas, Ms. Howard? You're not sure? Okay. So, all right, David, go ahead.
Like I mentioned before with the whole oh wait, not me, but Torrin mentioned before with the whole circumcision or not. Christianity really started off like very similar to the Jewish religion with a lot of their aspects and Jesus. With their similarities, the Christians were trying to differentiate themselves because at the moment, why wouldn't people just switch to like Jewish beliefs? Why would they switch to theirs? Well, it's just a little bit different. So I feel like the Christianity originally like fit quite well with Jewish beliefs, but then they later on tried to diversify themselves, differentiate, so like people would be more inclined to join their religion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I definitely agree. I think also just the fact that Jesus was Jewish, like that was probably a big part of it. Like he literally was Jewish. So, like I don't. So as far as we know, people in the Jewish group probably did blame him because he wasn't part of it. So it's not like Christians were necessarily how they are now. Like Christianity is completely different. It was just like another school of thought. Like the first time I think it was just they differed in certain beliefs, like who Jesus was, and also like how we go about bringing people into religion or faith. So like, I think it wasn't just to diversify, like we gotta pick a name for ourselves. I think they just came get a group wrong and was like, okay, we think we're gonna have to call divorce people, and they're like, well, you know, we think this, and so then it slowly started branching. I think that's what we said, like people, it was just certain little things. They probably tried to grow together, and it wasn't that far off. It was just certain little traditional things that dropped off on the Christian side, and then they started splitting up eventually.
Okay. Yes, John.
I just want to make a quick comment. I totally agree persons on the Jewish side, they don't believe he's the Savior. They don't believe that the Savior has come yet. They just see him as a prophet.
And that is certainly true. So we do see a lot of little differences, what you all have certainly described before, between Judaism and Christianity.
What are the actual?
Oh, sure. Give me one moment, Tatiana. Finish asking the question. I'll let Tatiana speak.
What are the core belief differences between Christianity and Judaism?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because as far as I know, I consider them to be the same, just with like slight differences. But I don't know enough about Jewish beliefs to make a statement on how it fits in with Christianity.
Okay. Tatiana, please say your piece. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, well, Judaism, they focus on the Old Testament, and then Christianity usually focuses on the New Testament. And Judaism is kind of a close practice. Like, it's not considered a close practice, but they're not necessarily like the most welcoming when it comes to people who are Jewish practicing Judaism. So I think that's a reason why they're not as diverse when it comes to like people and like I guess altar ideologies.
All right. Thank you, Tatiana. So, does anyone have an answer, even more answers to that question about, what really is that difference between Judaism and Christianity? Beyond just those small things. What are those school of thought differences?
They acknowledge that he was a person who might have done those things and still believe that he was the Savior.
Okay.
He was like a prophet. So that's how he did very well. Like, if this whole thing is like this person says who he is, and he believes that. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but I don't think he's like that. So that's why he did it.
Okay. So one people saying he is the Messiah, and other people saying he's not the Messiah. Yes.
Another thing that could tie into it is the way that they see the Holy Trinity. To Christians, Jesus is, a part of the whole entire, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're all one. I believe that the Jewish people saw it differently. That each piece of the Holy Trinity was something completely different. And that each piece of that Holy Trinity would come to reveal themselves to the people eventually in different times and in different ways.
Okay, I get you on that one. Certainly, the Jewish people are not on the Trinity. So just make sure we get to our other question, because I don't want to leave it on the wayside. I will provide some quick sum up for people. So first off, Judaism is the faith of what region of the world? Around Jerusalem. Israel. Okay. Now, Christianity. Is Christianity the religion of a specific region of the world?
No.
Okay. And Christianity is not the specific religion of a region of the world, because Christianity, as we are discussing, did it form within a region or formed within a what? Formed within an empire. Are empires automatically, by their very nature, heterogeneous and diverse?
Yes.
Yes. So if your religion is being specifically adapted to survive in this environment, which we've discussed then is your religion going to survive in a Jewish fashion, which has to restrict itself obviously to a specific region? No, it will not. Christianity automatically, in order to be what it is, has to be more, a modern word would be cosmopolitan. Because you could not survive as a faith sticking to the Jewish model, which is we are the people of this region, we believe in this for this region. As was stated by Tatiana, Judaism is a closed religion. It is a cultural faith. It's not just a belief system, it is your entire existence and way of life. It's how you define yourself as a people. Christian is not the only way you define yourself. It is merely one part of your overall existence. Christian, but I'm also French. Yeah, they also practice Christianity too. So that is a big core, another core belief difference between the two. Justification. Now that goes to our last one before we go. Don't pack up yet. Is we talked about centralization. We had that question before about centralization and diversity. So let me ask that then. I'm going to hear some answers. Why would you want to centralize?
Maybe you're, like I said before, with Christianity having core roots and being able to split off from that, maybe those roots are being tampered with by sections of the churches. Like they're going too far off, maybe splitting off into like their own religion, which can be seen as bad. So they want to bring it back to the core. So
Centralizing allows me to more easily find those who would corrupt the faith. It allows me to easily find the bad elements and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I saw her, and then him, and then we go you. Yes.
I also believe that, and aside from what David had said, it also has to do with just bringing peace finally, because a lot of it wanted, of course there was different ideas, but in the end, we just wanted, or they just wanted peace. So I think that by bringing it back to the old roots, you know, that they first started off with, would bring them to have, you know, and all of them to have one central agreement and to have, you know, a peace of mind, I guess.
So a byproduct of diversity is conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I agree with you, so like, like, if Chris had a solid base for everybody, you know, like instead of just starting wars, there's a lot of wars over politics, religion, stuff like that. And so it just creates like a base for everybody to like create peace. And it feels good to have something to rely on and like for your like future children or whatever, to have like a good centralized religion to continue
You know, I got what you mean, because Terry mentioned that earlier about how, yes, having that consistency and reliability is good for people. We really do kind of desire that. And centralization supports that, because then you get that firm foundation. We can all agree, whether we really want to or not, but we can all agree that's the foundation. The core has been described there, and that's a good way of providing that stability for people. Over here, of course, because her, and then we'll go back to Jordan. Yes?
I feel like the very basic idea of bringing it back is just a matter of organization. I feel like it's easier to develop that religion if it's all drawn back to its original state.
Okay, so we can actually develop a religion better by having it well organized, and centralization is well organized. Diversity is not. Okay, fair enough. And our last person, say something, Torrin?
I think I agree with everyone said, but I also think also it's just like I see we just like having a continue to go on. So but I also don't think just saying we all
Hold on, everyone.
But I also don't think we all should just do one ball and put the same thing. I think it's possible to coexist with people who are different. But not necessarily just from all business and
All right, we'll discuss diversity more, I'm sure, in the future. All right, everybody, make sure you got your record.